Welcome, boys and girls, to the NCAA Football Week 8 recap, presented to you by the Sports Fanatic. This week's episode, we're going to be covering all the top 25 teams, see what they did this week. We are also going to be looking at next week's top 25 and who they're playing, and we're going to do a very deep dive into the playoff odds, as we are a little bit past halfway through the season, but a lot of these teams got a lot of games left to play, so a top four that you have right now probably won't be staying that way come college football playoff time. So let's dive right in with number 1, Alabama. They played against Tennessee. They started that game with a 97% win probability. Guess what? They led 21-zip at halftime, and they won 45-7 by the end of the game. No contest. Alabama remains number 1. Number 2, Penn State played against number 19, Michigan, one of the most anticipated games. Penn State started their game with an 82% win probability. Saquon Barkley ran for 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. Penn State is up 14-zip. Michigan State did score back-to-back touchdowns. They missed one extra point, and then Penn State scored to respawn and take the lead 21-13 at half. Penn State comes back to score 3 touchdowns in the second half. They blow them out in the second half. They win 42-13. Michigan gets embarrassed. Penn State stays at number 2, and Michigan actually falls out of the top 25. I remember when they used to be top 10, and now they're just outside of the top 25 looking in. They couldn't even put up a fight against Penn State. Number 3, Georgia was on a bye. They stayed at number 3. TCU played against Kansas this week. They actually started their game with a 99% win probability. That's how rough of a season Kansas is having. TCU led 24-zip at halftime, and they end up winning that one 43-0. TCU stays at number 4. Number 5, Wisconsin played against Maryland. They started with a 92% win probability, and they came out to a nice 21-3 lead at halftime. Maryland did play a good third quarter, and Wisconsin only led 28-13 after 3 quarters, but Wisconsin came through to win 38-13. They stay at number 5 in the country. A couple of bye weeks. Number 6, Ohio State was on bye. Number 7, Clemson was on bye. They're both going to stay at their positions. Number 8, Miami played against Syracuse. Miami started this game with an 84% win probability, but hey, Syracuse has done it once. They might do it again. Miami had a nice 13-3 lead at halftime. Miami led 20-13 after the third quarter, so Syracuse had a nice third quarter. Syracuse kicks a field goal with 10 minutes left, 45-yard field goal, which is good for college. They're still down 20-16. Syracuse, with 5 minutes left in the game, kicks a 53-yard field goal, which is incredible on their kicker. They're still down 20-19. Miami scores a touchdown with 2:48 left. They lead by 8 points. They seal the deal, and they get a 27-19 win against Syracuse. They stay number 8 in the country. Number 9, Oklahoma played against Kansas State. Kansas State had a lead after the first quarter, 14-7. Guess what? Kansas State was up 21-10 at halftime over Oklahoma. That is embarrassing. Oklahoma scores 10 points in the third quarter. They're still down 21-20. Oklahoma scores a touchdown with 14 minutes left, and they get the 2-point conversion. Oklahoma leads 28-21. It's been a long time since Kansas State scored any points, but with 6 minutes, 40 seconds left, Kansas State scores a touchdown to tie it 28-28. Oklahoma scores a touchdown with 5 minutes left in the game. They're up 35-28. Kansas State comes right back. They score a touchdown with 2 minutes left in the game. The game's tied 35-35, and then on a 2-minute drill, 7 seconds left in the game, Oklahoma punches it in. They get a touchdown. They win 42-35, and they narrowly escape the upset, and they actually fall to number 10 from their number 9 spot. Number 10, Oklahoma State played against Texas. That game was tied 7-7 at halftime. Texas actually kicked a field goal in the third quarter to lead 10-7. Oklahoma State kicks a field goal with 12 minutes left in the game, tie it up 10-10. Oklahoma State missed a 29-yard field goal in the fourth quarter, and Texas got the ball 4 different times and had to punt all 4 times. So nobody was doing anything on offense. The game goes to overtime. Oklahoma State starts with a 34-yard field goal. Texas, on the 6-yard line, keep it in mind, if they kick a field goal, it's all good. They go to double overtime. But on the 6-yard line, they were going for the touchdown to get the win, and they throw an interception that gives Oklahoma State a 13-10 win. Holy smokes, they almost got upset. And for that effort, Oklahoma State falls to number. With Oklahoma State falling outside of the top 10, the winner of this game is going to replace them. Number 11 USC played against number 13 Notre Dame in one of the more anticipated matchups of the weekend. Notre Dame scores 4 touchdowns in the first half, explodes to a 28-0 lead, and guess what? The second half was the same thing. Notre Dame wins 49-14, absolutely obliterates USC. USC falls all the way down to number 21, and Notre Dame is broken into the top 10. They are now number 9 in the country. Number 14, Virginia Tech played against North Carolina. Number 12, Washington was on a bye week. They stay at number 12. Virginia Tech had an 83% chance to beat North Carolina. They score five touchdowns in the first half. They lead 35-0, and they keep on cruising. They win 59-7. Virginia Tech's going to move up to number 13. Number 15, Washington State played against Colorado. Washington State had a 14-0 lead at halftime, and their defense was phenomenal as they shut out Colorado and get a 28-0 win. Washington State stays at number 15. Number 16, South Florida played against Tulane this week. South Florida had a nice 20-7 lead at halftime, and they built on that lead to lead 34-14 after the third quarter. Tulane scored a touchdown with 7 minutes left to be down 34-21. Then they scored again with 2 minutes left to be down 34-28, so only 6, but they never got the ball back as South Florida was able to hold on to the ball and get a 34-28 win. South Florida falls to number 17. Number 17, NC State, was on a bye week, and on their bye week, they actually move up 3 spots, which is crazy. They go all the way up to number 14 now. Number 18, Michigan State played against Indiana. There was no touchdowns in the first 3 quarters, and the score was 6-3 Indiana after 3 quarters. Indiana then kicks a field goal with 12:30 left to lead 9-3. But guess what? Touchdowns will do you in a low-scoring game like this. Michigan State scores a touchdown with 6 minutes left. They lead 10-9. Michigan State follows it up with another touchdown to seal the deal, 17-9. Michigan State comes alive in the fourth quarter, takes care of business. They move up to number 16 in the country. Number 20, UCF plays against Navy. UCF being Central Florida. They led 14-7 at halftime. Keep in mind, Navy's a real tough opponent. They were last week's number 25. UCF built upon the lead. They led 24-14 after the third quarter. Navy scores a touchdown with 12:50 left to make it 24-21. UCF does score a touchdown with 3:30 left. UCF gets a 31-21 victory. They're going to move up to number 18 in the country. Number 21, Auburn played against Arkansas. Auburn had a 17-6 lead at halftime, and then Auburn scored 4 touchdowns in 1 quarter. 4 touchdowns in the third quarter. They took the lead 45-13. They held on to that to win 52-20. Auburn moves up to number 19 in the country. Number 22, Stanford had a bye week, and they actually moved up 2 spots, so they got to number 20. Number 23, West Virginia played against winless Baylor. West Virginia led 17-6 at halftime, and West Virginia actually scored 3 touchdowns in the third quarter to lead 38-13. This game looked like it was over, but then Baylor scores back-to-back touchdowns at the start of the fourth quarter. They're down 38-27. Baylor kicks a field goal with 6 minutes left. They are now down 38-30. Baylor gets the ball back, scores a touchdown, 17 seconds left in the game. All they have to do is get the 2-point conversion to tie it. They can't get the 2-point conversion, and despite scoring 23 points in a quarter, West Virginia holds on to win 38-36. Incredible. West Virginia moves up to number 22. Number 24, LSU played against Ole Miss. LSU had a nice 13-6 lead at halftime. Then they went big in the third quarter. They led 30-16, and they held on to it and won 40-24. 40-point game, pretty good for LSU. They're going to move up to number 23 in the country. Number 25, Memphis played against Houston. Houston's a really tough opponent. They actually led 17-0 at halftime, and then Memphis scored 3 touchdowns in the third quarter, but Houston also scored 2 touchdowns. Houston led 31-21 after 3 quarters. Memphis scores a touchdown with 11 minutes left. They're down 31-28. Houston scores a touchdown with 6 minutes left. They keep leading 38-28. Memphis scores a touchdown with 5 minutes left. They're still down 38-35. Memphis scores another touchdown with 1:30 left. They lead 42-38. Houston throws an interception. Memphis with a massive comeback victory, 42-38. They move up to number 24. With Michigan being the only team to fall out of the top 25, there's going to be one new team. Iowa State played against Texas Tech, and actually, Iowa State, keep in mind, this is the team that upset Oklahoma, and they have been tearing it up. After that game, they just keep being dominant. They led 24-6 at halftime, and they won 31-13. Iowa State's going to be the new number 25 team in the country. You got to watch out for them because they're playing some good football. Here's our current AP Top 25. Number 1 Alabama is going to be on a bye week as they prepare for LSU, the big rivalry. Number 2 Penn State in a huge matchup against number 6. They're on the road against number 6 Ohio State. That is going to be a total toss-up. You got to keep your eyes on that one. That's going to be huge playoff implications right there. Number 3 Georgia is playing against Florida. Expect to see them win that game, as they have a higher than 80% chance of winning. But Florida still put up a fight. Number 4, TCU goes on the road against Iowa State in what's going to be an exciting battle. TCU is very good. They should handle Iowa State, but Iowa State's playing some good football, and boy, would that be an incredible story if they upset TCU to add to their previous upset of Oklahoma. Number 5, Wisconsin goes on the road against Illinois. Wisconsin should take care of this one. They have a higher than 90% chance of sealing the deal here. We talked about number 6, Ohio State. They're playing at home against Penn State. Huge game. Number 7, Clemson is going to be home against Georgia Tech. They have a higher than 80% chance of winning this one. Expect Clemson to handle this. Number 8, Miami goes on the road against North Carolina. North Carolina just got dismantled in their last game. Expect Miami to take care of this one. They have a greater than 80% chance of winning. Number 9, Notre Dame is going to have a very exciting matchup at home against number 14, NC State. Notre Dame, this is going to be the last difficult matchup they have pretty much on their schedule. And if they lose to this, this is just going to be a great game either way. Maybe if they come out the gates and explode and destroy NC State, their stock's just going to keep moving up. So we'll see how Notre Dame does against NC State. Number 10, Oklahoma. They're going to be at home against Texas Tech. Expect them to handle Texas Tech, but hey, they haven't been playing some good football. So despite having a greater than 80% chance of winning, Texas Tech definitely is looking to pull off an upset. Number 11, Oklahoma State. They're going on the road against number 22, West Virginia. That's going to be a great game. West Virginia, definitely a team not to mess with. Oklahoma State favored to win, but another exciting game that we're going to have this week. Number 12, Washington. They're going to be at home against UCLA. Expect Washington to win this one. UCLA's not that good, but maybe this is going to be the downfall of Washington here. Definitely only around an 85% chance for them. Number 13, Virginia Tech. They're in the same position. They're playing against Duke. Duke's not a bad team, but also not a good team. So Virginia Tech's chilling at a higher than 80% win probability. Number 14, NC State, as mentioned, they're going on the road to play Notre Dame, and this is going to be massive for whoever wins. Expect a good game. Number 15, Washington State. They're going on the road to Arizona. They're officially on upset alert. This game is listed as a toss-up. Despite all the good things about Washington State, they got to watch out against Arizona because Arizona is they're playing great right now. They're bringing the heat. Number 16, Michigan State. Guess what? They're going on the road to Northwestern. Also, put Michigan State on upset alert. They got to watch out against Northwestern. That game's a toss-up. Number 17, USF is going to be playing against Houston. If Houston didn't blow a lead, they might be in the top 25 right now. So USF's going to have a good matchup there against Houston. Number 18, UCF is going to be at home against Austin Peay, which is an FCS team. So UCF's got a very high chance of winning. Very high. They'd be a surprise if they lost that. Number 19, Auburn. They're on a bye week. Number 20, Stanford goes on the road to Oregon State. Stanford should handle this. They have a greater than 90% chance of winning this one. Number 21, USC is on upset alert on the road against Arizona State. Arizona State's been playing so good, USC's got to watch out, especially with the way they've been playing. That game's a toss-up. Number 22, West Virginia. We talked about them. They're going to be playing a great game at home against Oklahoma State. 23, LSU. They're on a bye. Number 24, Memphis. They're going to be playing against Tulane. Definitely watch that, see if Memphis' stock can rise. And as we mentioned, the new guys on this list, number 25, Iowa State, get to have home field against number 4, TCU. A lot of great matchups this week in the top 25. Now we're going to look at the chances of winning the conference as well as the playoff odds. The ACC we're going to start with. Number 7, Clemson has a 34% chance to win the conference. Miami, right next to them, 33% chance to win the conference. They only have 20% playoff odds. Clemson sitting at a little bit better, 31% playoff odds. Also, NC State, 21% chance to sneak up and grab the ACC, as well as 6% playoff odds. Number 13, Virginia Tech. They got a small chance, but they've got a 10% chance to win the conference as well. 7% odds to get into the playoffs. Both Georgia Tech and Florida State together have a 1% chance to win the conference as well. The Pac-12. Number 12, Washington right now has a 36% chance to win the conference and a 24% chance to sneak into the playoffs. Number 20, Stanford is actually the next best candidate at a 26% chance to win the Pac-12 and a 7% chance to get into the playoff. Number 21, USC has a 19% chance to win the Pac-12 and a 3% chance to get into the playoff. Number 15, Washington State has a 7% chance to win the conference, 3% playoff odds. And both Arizona, Arizona State, and UCLA have a real chance of winning the Pac-12 as well. There's about a 12% chance that the conference champion is going to be one of these, as all three of them are coming off of wins. All three of them are looking good. All three of them are only in the same conference as USC, so they only have to beat USC. So the Pac-12 is wide open. The Big Ten, not so wide open. With Ohio State, 37% chance to win the Big Ten, 33% playoff odds. Wisconsin, 35% chance to win the Big Ten, 34% playoff odds. Penn State, despite being number 2, 26% chance to win the Big Ten, 37% playoff odds. Penn State has a much tougher schedule than these other two, but hey, Penn State's playing Ohio State this week. Whoever wins that game is immediately going to get launched into the favorite to win this Big Ten conference. Whoever loses is going to be turned into a long shot to win the conference. But right now, big odds on Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Penn State. One of these guys is going to be able to secure that Big Ten championship. Both Michigan State, Michigan, Northwestern, and Nebraska together have a 2% chance of shocking us and winning the conference as well. The Big 12. Big 12 doesn't have a conference championship game, and it's actually wide open. Number 4, TCU leads the way with a 39% chance of winning the conference, 29% playoff odds. Number 10, Oklahoma, 30% chance of winning the conference, 22% playoff odds. Oklahoma State, number 11, 21% chance of winning, as well as 13% playoff odds. So TCU, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, all of them right now looking like the favorites to win the Big 12. It's probably going to be one of those three. But hey, look at Iowa State sneaking up with a 6% chance of winning. 1% playoff odds. West Virginia, 2% chance to win the conference. Texas, 2% chance to win the conference. The SEC, Alabama is leading the charge right now. 56% odds to win the SEC. 69% odds to get into the playoffs. Number 3, Georgia, 32% chance of winning the SEC. 39% playoff odds. So we are pretty confident that SEC championship game is going to be between Alabama and Georgia, and definitely Alabama or Georgia is going to be on top of this conference. But still a chance for some outside competitors. Number 19, Auburn has an 8% chance to win the SEC, 5% playoff odds. LSU, 2% chance to win the SEC, and a 1% playoff odds. And South Carolina, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, all of them have a collective 2% chance of snagging the conference as well. The last conference we're going to look at is actually surprisingly competitive, the American Conference. UCF is leading the charge right now with a 47% chance of winning the American Conference. Number 24, Memphis, keep an eye out for them, 25% chance to win the conference. South Florida, the highest ranked of these guys, at number 17. They have a 20% chance to win the American Conference. So the American Conference is exciting. It's going to be UCF, USF, Memphis, all of them competing for it. There's going to be an American Conference championship game between two really good teams, so you're going to have to keep an eye on that. SMU, Navy, and Houston, all very good. They together have an 8% chance as well to win the conference. And Notre Dame, keep in mind they're independent. They have some pretty slim odds of making the college football playoff. They're sitting at 11% playoff odds. The Heisman watch, starting off with Saquon Barkley, still number 1. Bryce Love, right behind him. You know, he might win the Heisman. Baker Mayfield, he's going to need to have a great second half. He's a little bit behind, but he's kind of a solid third place right now. Baker Mayfield, the quarterback. And Sneaking in at the number 4 spot, we have our fun little surprise here. Running back Josh Adams from Notre Dame. Definitely not in the watch to win the Heisman, but hey, if he finishes the season well, if he keeps playing well, if Notre Dame keeps winning, he might get an invite as one of the finalists. So keep an eye on the new talented running back Josh Adams from Notre Dame. We're introducing this would be where the video ends, but we're going to introduce a new way of looking at the college football playoff. We're going to take all of the teams that still have a shot at the college football playoff, and we're going to divide them into 3 categories. Category number 1, not dead even if they lose. These are the teams that even if they don't win the rest of the games, they can still afford a loss and have a chance of getting back into the college football playoff. Then there's destiny in your hands. These are the teams that absolutely won't make the playoffs if they lose, but if they can win all of their games, suddenly they look like they're going to get into the college football playoff. So it's totally in their control. And then there's our 3rd category, which is win everything and get lucky, which is teams that need to win out the rest of the year, need to win all the rest of their games, and then they have to get lucky, and they need some help on top of that. So we're going to start with not dead even if they lose. Guess what? Number 1, Alabama. Alabama, they got a pretty tough rest of the season ahead of them. LSU is going to be a challenge. Auburn's going to be a challenge. And of course, the SEC Championship is going to be a big challenge. If they win everything, if they win the SEC Championship, lock them in. They're definitely in the playoffs. If they lose, they still got a 50-50 shot of sneaking into the playoffs. That's for sure. This team's got a big reputation. Number 2, Penn State. Look at that schedule they have. They got to play Ohio State. They got to follow it up with Michigan State. And then they got a couple upset alert games against Nebraska and Maryland. And then they have to win the Big Ten Championship. If Penn State can do all that, if they can win all of these games, absolutely, they're in the college football playoff. If they lose, all of a sudden they only have a 20% chance. So they're going to need some help if they lose. And chances are they lose somewhere on this road. So Penn State, interesting. But hey, maybe they'll get a loss and sneak into the playoffs. Number 3, Georgia. Georgia, not a very difficult schedule. Georgia Tech's a bit of a challenge. Auburn's a challenge. Florida's a challenge. And of course, the SEC Championship is going to be huge. If they cruise through the rest of the season and win the SEC Championship, heck yeah, put them in the college football playoff, baby. If they lose, though, they actually still have 31.5% playoff odds. People have recognized that the SEC is really dominant. So if Georgia loses one of these games, they might still sneak into the college football playoff. They might find their way. Number 4, TCU. TCU's got a pretty rough schedule. They got to play Iowa State, Texas, Oklahoma, and Texas Tech, as well as Baylor. So they got to do a lot of good victories, a lot of strong wins here left on the schedule for them. If they cruise and they win all these games, absolutely. TCU is going to be in the college football playoff, without a doubt. If they lose, though, they got 19% playoff odds, so they're not dead, but they're going to need some help if they lose somewhere along this road. Number 5, Wisconsin. They only have to play Michigan, and perhaps Iowa is the hardest teams on their schedule. But, of course, the Big Ten Championship is going to be massive for them. If they win the Big Ten Championship, put them in the playoffs, guaranteed. If they do lose somewhere here, which, definitely could happen, they're going to need some help. They're going to have only 19% playoff odds. Number 6, Ohio State. They got a real tough game against Penn State, and they got to follow it up by playing Michigan State and Michigan and the Big Ten Championships. If they win all these games and then they get crowned Big Ten champion, they have a 96% chance of making the playoff. That's a lock, in my opinion. If they lose, oh boy, they're going to need some help. If they lose anywhere here, they got a real slim 10% chance of making the playoffs. Number 7, Clemson. They're playing Georgia Tech. Then they got a tough game against NC State. And, of course, the ACC Championship is going to be real tough for them. If they can slam dunk the rest of the season and get that ACC Championship, 98% chance of the college football playoff. We're going to be seeing them. If they lose, though, Clemson with 2 losses, good luck. 12% odds of getting into the playoffs. They're definitely going to have to get lucky. They're not dead, but real slim odds if they lose somewhere along this line. Number 8, Miami. Guess what? They got to take out Notre Dame and Virginia Tech as the rest of their schedule. But if they beat Notre Dame and Va Tech, and probably they're playing Clemson in that ACC championship, if they win that, they're going to the playoff, no doubt. I think they're actually undefeated right now. So if they can win out, they got a 98% chance they're probably going to get into the playoff. Keep in mind, for both Clemson and Miami, the reason they have that little 2% chance is because those 4 teams above, where I told you, they're locked in if they win. I mean, imagine if that happens. Imagine if the top 4 teams all win. It'd be really sad for Miami and Clemson because they'd be like, well, crud, we don't have any room here. So that's where that 2% comes in. But assume that one of those guys loses. Assume that if Miami and Clemson can win out, they're getting in. Of course, if Miami doesn't win, they got 11% playoff odds. It's not looking good for them. We got 2 more teams here that fit into the not dead category. Number 10, Oklahoma. They got to play Oklahoma State. They got to play TCU. They got to play West Virginia. They have an incredibly hard rest of the schedule. But if they can win all of these games, they are probably going to get into the college football playoff. Despite that one loss, the rest of these teams on the schedule are so hard, especially if they beat TCU. If they can win everything, they're going to be the Big 12 champions. They're going to be in the college football playoff. If they lose with 2 losses, good luck getting into the playoffs. It's pretty tough for them, looking at only 9% playoff odds. Number 12, Washington. They got pretty tough schedule. Utah's a good team. UCLA's a good team. Stanford, Washington State, both real tough. And they got to follow that up by winning the Pac-12 championship game. If they can win all this, they're looking good for the college football playoff. They're not guaranteed, but they're looking real solid because they're going to be the Pac-12 champion. They're going to finish the season strong, and they're going to look like a dominant team. Keep in mind, this was a top 5 team in the country before they got upset. So if they can win out, they're looking good. Not guaranteed, but they're looking good. If they lose, yeah, good luck. 5% playoff odds. They're almost dead. Not completely dead, but almost dead if they lose anywhere along this line. So Washington, you're going to need to win out and be the Pac-12 champ if you want to get into that playoff, son. That's the end of the not dead category. Now we're going to look at destiny in your hands. These teams are 100% no chance at all if they lose a game. But at the same time, if they can win out for the rest of the season, then they look like they might be going to the playoff. We'll start with number 11, Oklahoma State. They got to play West Virginia, Iowa State, Oklahoma. They got to play some incredibly tough teams. If they cruise and win against all these teams, they're looking really good to get into the college football playoff at 83%. But they can't afford to lose, otherwise they're practically dead. Number 13, Virginia Tech. If they can take out Miami and beat Georgia Tech and win the ACC championship game, that's going to be incredible for them, and they're going to be looking for so strong. They're going to have a 77% chance of the college football playoff. If they lose, though, no chance. Number 14, NC State. They got to start by beating Notre Dame, which is basically they got to beat Notre Dame and Clemson. I mean, that's insane if they do that. But Notre Dame, Clemson, back-to-back, if they do it, and slam dunk the ACC championship game, they're going to the college football playoff because it's going to be an absolute crime if they don't make it. But they can't afford to lose, and chances are they lose one of these next 2 weeks, and then that's going to kill their playoff odds. Number 15, Washington State. They got to play Arizona, Stanford, Utah, Washington. All these teams are so good, and they got to win the Pac-12 championship. But if they finish the season like a brand new team, then they're looking good. They got a 78% chance of the college football playoff. They can't afford to lose, though. This team's on the edge. If they lose, they're dead. But, hey, maybe they'll be the Pac-12 champs. We'll see how the season ends up for them. Number 16, Michigan State. They got to play Northwestern. They got to beat Penn State and Ohio State and be crowned Big Ten champs. But if Michigan State does the impossible, and I mean literally this would be impossible, of winning against Penn State and Ohio State in back-to-back weeks and then winning the Big Ten championship, I think they're going to be in the college football playoff. So they does 3%, but I think they're going to pull that off. If they lose, though, they're out. So they can't afford to lose, and chances are they will. But so far, destiny's in their hands, Auburn. Auburn has a real tough schedule. They got to play Georgia and Alabama. And if they can beat number 3 Georgia, then go ahead and beat number 1 Alabama, and then go slam dunk that SEC championship game, they look really strong to make the college football playoff. 69%, I think they would be even higher than that because Georgia and Alabama are so dang good. So if they can win the rest of their games, they should be looking fine. But hey, that's probably not going to happen. So if they lose at any point here, consider them dead. Number 20, Stanford. They got to play Washington State and Washington and Notre Dame and the Pac-12 championship. But if they explode and have a fiery second half of the season, they win all this, they got about a 2-in-3 chance of making the college football playoff. You know, they would need some help, but they still got pretty strong odds pulling into that college football playoff. If they lose, they're actually not dead, but they got a 1 in 100 chance. Number 23, LSU. They're playing Alabama, not this week, but next week. And if they beat Alabama, which would be insane, and they win their next 3 games, and they pull off that SEC championship game, they have a 71% chance of the playoffs. They would be looking very nice. If they lose, they're out. So, if they can't beat Alabama, no college football playoff for you. Sorry, LSU. I mean, they lost to Troy. The last team in the Destiny in Your Hands category is actually pretty fun. Number 25, Iowa State. If they get that incredible upset against TCU, if they get an incredible upset against West Virginia, if they go ahead and smack Oklahoma State, if they finish the season strong with 5 straight wins against these very difficult opponents, they actually have a 55% chance of making the college football playoff. So, I don't really give them a good chance of cruising through the rest of the year here. But if they do, they're in the talk for the college football playoff. And if they lose, they're dead. But, Iowa State, they're basically the lowest ranked team that has destiny in their hands, right? After this, we're looking at the win and get lucky category. These teams, if they lose, they're dead. And even if they win the rest of the games this year, they're going to need some help. So these are the guys that are really, really long shots. I mean, we've gone through like 15, 16 teams, I think. So this would be crazy if one of these teams in this category got in, but it's worth giving them a shot. I mean, for example, Notre Dame. If Notre Dame can cruise through the rest of the season, beating Navy is a really good team, Miami, which is a really good team, NC State, which is a really good team, Stanford, which is a really good team. I mean, if they get all these guys, it would be really hard to get out of the college football playoff. They have about a 50-50 chance. They would need some help, but they absolutely deserve to get in if they can beat all those teams. Number 17, South Florida. If they cruise through the rest of the year, smack on some really good teams, and win the conference championship, they still only have a 3% chance of the college football playoff. Same with UCF. If they cruise, if they beat everyone, if they win the American championship, then good for them, but they only have a 2% chance of the playoff. Number 21, USC. They got a really tough schedule. Not really tough, no ranked teams, but both Arizona State and Arizona are good. And if they cruise and then they go to that Pac-12 championship game and they pull off an upset and they win that, they got a chance. They got a 27% chance of getting into the playoff. They would need some help. They would need some other teams to lose, but they got a chance. Number 22, West Virginia. They got a tough schedule. If they can beat Texas and Oklahoma State and Iowa State, they can cruise and win all these games. They got a 41% chance of the college football playoff. They got a really solid chance, but of course that's if they can win against all these teams. So keep an eye on them. They're not dead yet, but we'll see. The last ranked team here is number 24, Memphis. If they win all their games, get crowned the American Conference champions, they got a 0.5% chance of getting into the playoff. But it's worth looking at, Maybe they're the team that wins the American championship. We'll see. Now there's actually 5 teams that are unranked, but can still say they have a chance at the college football playoff. Let's look at these guys. Take a look at Michigan right now. If they pull off an upset against Wisconsin, and then get another upset against Ohio State, and then I don't even know if they'll get invited to the Big Ten Championship, but if they win the Big Ten Championship, would be insane if they did, they got a tiny 3% chance of that college football playoff, which is cute. Mississippi State, if they upset Alabama and go on to win all of these games and then be the SEC champs, they got a 5% chance of getting into the college football playoff. South Carolina, they have to play Georgia, Florida, and Clemson. If South Carolina can beat Georgia and freaking Clemson and then be the SEC champs, they got a solid 26% chance of being in the college football playoff. Georgia Tech, if they can beat Clemson and Va Tech and Georgia and then win the ACC championship, they'll have an 11% chance of the college football playoff. And finally, Texas A&M, if they upset Mississippi State, Auburn, LSU, and then win the SEC champs, which would be just mind-blowing if Texas A&M win the SEC championship, then they have a 3% college football playoff. So, these teams are one loss away from being completely dead, and even if they win, they'd be a long shot anyway. So that's the win and everything, get lucky category. Those are the three categories. Keep an eye on those teams. Write them down. Watch them next weekend. A lot of really good football to watch next weekend, which is going to make next week's episode even more fun to cover. So come back next week for the Week 9 recap, as we are basically halfway through the college football season, which is very exciting. Season is just picking up. The playoff action is just getting in. That's going to be incredible. And thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. And remember, go forth and spread beauty and light.